Deep in the North Atlantic, between Norway and Iceland, there's a place that feels straight out of a dream. A cluster of green gems scattered across the wild ocean. Once rated by National Geographic as one of the most beautiful island groups in the world, these are the Faroe Islands. 18 volcanic islands that look like they've been sprinkled across the sea by a painter with an obsession for perfection. Imagine grasslands that somehow cling to cliffs 1,000 meters high, the northern lights glowing in winter, and millions of seabirds returning every summer. But here's the thing, not a single large tree grows naturally. Crazy, right? It's like nature decided to skip forests and focus on pure, raw beauty instead. Now, the Faroe Islands aren't an independent country, but they have their own language, culture, and identity that's fiercely unique. The entire population? Just about 54,000 people. But here's the wild part. Their per capita GDP is higher than in most European countries. So small place, huge success. Welcome to the edge of the world. The forgotten but unforgettable Faroe Islands. Geographically, these islands sit halfway between Norway and Iceland, kind of a hidden halfway point between mainland Europe and the Icelandic coast. There are 18 main islands here, and 17 of them are actually inhabited. Altogether, they cover around 1,399 square kilometers. Small enough to drive across in a day, but every turn looks like a scene from a fantasy movie. Their location makes them this crucial link between Europe and the North Atlantic. Wild, windswept, and full of character. The islands are mountainous, steep cliffs, deep valleys, and an average elevation of around 300 meters. The tallest peak, Sléttaratindur, rises proudly to 882 meters. The landscape was carved by glaciers ages ago, leaving behind these dramatic U-shaped valleys, jagged peaks, and cliffs that seem to fall straight into the sea. The coastline stretches over 1,100 kilometers, with narrow straits where strong tidal currents rush through like nature's own performance. Powerful, untamed, and stunning. Most Faroese people are descendants of the old Scandinavian settlers, proud, kind-hearted, and deeply connected to their land and faith. The main religion here is Evangelical Lutheranism, and their official languages are Faroese and Danish. Even though the islands are tiny and remote, their culture is surprisingly rich. Think medieval churches, colorful fishing villages, and cozy turf-roofed houses that look like they belong in a fairy tale. Walking here feels like stepping back in time. Everything is simple, calm, and deeply peaceful. History runs deep in the Faroe Islands. The story goes back to around the 9th century, though some believe Irish monks were the first to settle here as early as the 6th century. Then came the Vikings around 800 AD, bold explorers who turned these islands into a Norse colony. By 1035, the Faroes were part of the Kingdom of Norway. Later in 1397, under the Kalmar Union, they came under Danish control. When Denmark and Norway split in 1814, the Faroes stayed with Denmark. Fast forward to 1948, the Faroe Islands officially became self-governing. So today they're still under the Danish crown, but manage their own affairs with their own parliament and government. Pretty independent for a place in the middle of the ocean. As of 2024, about 54,545 people call the Faroe Islands home. Most of them live on Streymoy, the biggest island, which also has the capital, Tórshavn. It's small but full of character, with red and black wooden houses, cozy cafes, and that old Nordic charm you can't find anywhere else. Some of the smaller islands are so remote that fewer than 100 people live there. And on Mykines, only around 30 residents stay year-round. It's like a close-knit village surrounded by the wild Atlantic. About 85% of the population are ethnic Faroes, mostly descended from Scandinavian and Anglo-Saxon settlers. The rest are from Denmark, and the Philippines, Poland, and a few other countries, giving the islands a quietly diverse feel. Life here might be remote, but it's secure and well-supported. The Faroes have one of the most generous welfare systems in the world. Seriously, they've got it all figured out. From birth to retirement, people are cared for. New mothers get 48 weeks of maternity leave. Fathers get 12, both paid around 80% of their salaries. Kids get monthly allowances until they're 18. Healthcare? Almost free. You just pay a small registration fee, and that's it. Even surgeries are covered. Seniors receive pensions, and those who can't care for themselves get home assistance. It's one of those from cradle to grave welfare systems you only hear about in Scandinavia. Now let's talk money, because for such a tiny place, the economy here is surprisingly strong. In 2023, the GDP reached about 7.28 billion Danish kroner. Most of that comes from the sea. Fishing and aquaculture are the lifeblood of the Faroes economy. The islands sit right where warm and cold ocean currents meet, creating perfect conditions for marine life. Cod, herring, salmon, and a whole range of fish that make this one of the best seafood-producing regions in the world. In fact, fishing makes up nearly 20% of GDP and about 95% of all exports. Faroes seafood goes everywhere: Denmark, Norway, the UK, the US, you name it. Besides fish, the land plays its part too. With around 80,000 sheep roaming the islands, that's 1.5 times the human population. Wool and mutton are big here. Faroese wool is soft, warm, and beloved by travelers who fall in love with those handmade sweaters and scarves. Now you'd think that being so far north, close to the Arctic Circle, the Faroes would be freezing. But here's the surprise. The North Atlantic current keeps the islands mild all year round. Winters average around 3 to 4 degrees Celsius, and summers hover between 9.5 and 10.5. Never too hot, never too cold. But it rains a lot, about 260 days a year. And when it's not raining, it's cloudy. You might think that sounds gloomy, but honestly, it gives the islands this dreamy, ever-changing mood. Mist wraps around the mountains, waterfalls disappear into fog, and the whole place feels like a living painting. That's part of what makes the Faroe Islands one of Lonely Planet's top travel destinations. There are no big cities, no crowds, just clean air, dramatic landscapes, and the kind of peace you didn't know you were missing. One of the most famous spots here is Mulafossur Waterfall, a breathtaking cascade that drops straight from a cliff into the Atlantic Ocean. It's like nature's own magic trick, and yep, it's been featured in a James Bond movie. Between May and August, thousands of seabirds nest near the cliffs, flying through the mist and diving into the waves. Around 10 a.m., when the light hits just right, it feels like you've stepped into a fairy tale. Then there's Saxon Bay, where, when the tide goes out, the sea reveals green meadows with an old turf-roofed church sitting quietly by the water. White walls, green roof, blue ocean. It's honestly one of the most photogenic places on Earth. Around 3 p.m., when the sun stretches long shadows over the grass, every shot looks like a postcard. Another must-see? The Kalor Lighthouse on Kalsoy Island. Perched on the edge of a massive cliff, this tiny white lighthouse faces the endless Atlantic. At sunset, the sky turns pink and purple, and the whole scene looks straight out of a movie. No wonder photographers love it. And if you head to the Vestmanna Sea Cliffs, you'll find enormous basalt formations, towering walls of stone that boats can sail between. It's one of those places where you truly feel how powerful nature can be. In Tórshavn, the capital, time slows down. The old town still has 17th century wooden houses, bright red with grass roofs, typical of Nordic charm. Tiny shops and art studios hide in narrow lanes, and fun fact, it's home to the smallest post office in Northern Europe. Wandering here feels like finding the soul of the Faroes. Creative, cozy, and deeply human. But it's not just about sightseeing. The Faroe Islands are made for adventure, sailing, hiking, fishing, birdwatching. You can stand at the edge of a cliff and see lakes spilling into the ocean below, or sit quietly and listen to seabirds calling over green meadows. Every view, every sound, feels like a reminder that nature still rules here. The Faroe Islands are truly like a hidden treasure floating in the North Atlantic, untouched, mysterious, and waiting to be explored. If you ever feel that pull to see something different, something raw and real, come here. Stand on those cliffs, feel the mist on your face, and let the wind tell you its story. Because once you step on this land, you won't just see its beauty, you'll feel it deep in your heart.